looking at the sky, starry-eyed, searching for the place, weary-eyed, crying in the night, teary-eyed.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. All right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The world is a ghetto. And if you don't agree with that, take a look at what's happening in the news, on your social media platforms, and you will see that even if it does not encompass everything that is happening throughout the entire world, is definitely an appearance that the world is a ghetto as it relates to what's happening here in this country and what this country continues to do, or the governance structure of this country continues to do, to abuse, disrespect the hegemony and the human rights of other people throughout this entire globe, primarily people of color. Today is Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. And we are continually moving quickly through this year. So we are now on our third month of the year of 2026, approaching the spring equinox, where we'll get the opportunity to embrace the new energy coming onto the planet, as we always do with the spring of the year, which is the new year, the rightful new year, where life begins to spring forward once again. Welcome again to Moments with Malik. This is episode number 5. And as I always caution us, those who step into this arena, those who come to listen to the words and the message that I choose to deliver, this is a plane that I am building while it's in the air. And I ask you all to continue to be patient with me as I bring up to speed Moments with Malik and put it on the same accord as and with the same work and efforts that I put forth with the health walk, and making it to a reputable source of information as we prepare our lessons and continue to teach and provide information that assists us within our community to make decisions that assist us in our continued elevation and growth. One moment, please, while I do something with this camera. Okay. I had some challenges this coming on, trying to figure out what was going on with my mic, what was going on with my stream box. I was not hearing my mic through my headsets, and I was trying to figure out what was happening with that. I spent about 15 to 20 minutes preparing or troubleshooting that issue so that I can come in and be uh, be on point with this message. So that burned a lot of my time. Um, Fortunately, I did some preparation work, as I always do, before my show starts. But there was a bit of one critical piece of information that I was looking through my my archives and I couldn't find. But I can kind of step through that through memory, what I wanted, how I wanted to tie the information in. So tonight's topic: U.S. white psychopathy and its threat to global progress. Now, if you remember episode 4, when I was laying down the components of what white psychopathy is and how it relates to this idea of through some white men of this lie about superiority or white superiority, which is a myth. If you go back and look at episode 4, I actually went back and looked at it myself just to do a quick critique, and I was quite pleased with the message that was delivered. And I think I laid down some information. Of course, I need to go back and kind of tighten up the research because this would definitely be an ongoing topic on Moments with Malik as this show progresses. Um, I think it's critical that we understand the relationship that we have, and particularly us as a people, the relationship that we have in this country, in those who perceive themselves as this superior race of people. And if you are at any cost familiar with history, um, you would see that this reality or this illusion that they live in um, has is really beginning to become a disturbance to other cultures, to the world in its entirety. It's becoming a threat to the entire globe and the existence of the human species here on this planet. And if you think or believe that I'm being hyperbolic with these statements, you don't have to listen to me. You can go across different platforms, radio shows, uh, news outlets, go through um, journals, and people are quite concerned with the things that have been happening over the last year and a half as we unleashed this quickly diminished monster on the entire world. Um, you look at the steps that have been taking place and how we're leading up to where we are today. If you're not, I mean, if you've been living underneath of a rock the last 6 days, 5 days, what's the day? Wednesday. Today's the 4th. The last 6 days, if you've been living under a rock, you would not know that the United States once again has leased or declared or roughed up or bullied um, another so-called Middle East country. This again, Iran, which for whatever reason, this country has Iran in its crosshairs. I tend to know why. Those who have been doing research and watching the patterns and as they unfold knows why too. Um, but the problem that is being had here is that those of us who are common citizens, who we identify as commoners, or those who are so tapped in and dialed into other um, distractions of just plain living, have not had the opportunity to delve into what's happening, what's contributing to us wanting to continually go into war or bomb these Middle Eastern countries for no apparent reason at all, other than some propagandized bullshit that they perpetuate on the minds of the innocent minds, or I should say, not innocent minds, the miseducated minds of the collective. Those within our community who try to sound the bell back in 2024 that this had the potential to spin off. This could be the inevitable if we allowed a monster, a psychopath, a sociopath back into the head of state and being in the control of global affairs and domestic affairs too. But in this particular case, we're talking about global affairs. So yes, U.S. white psychopathy and its threat to global progress. And I'm saying I wanted to I was teetering back and forth between the words global progress or global peace, and I thought that global progress would encompass also global peace. You beginning to see other countries who have divorced themselves from the genuflexing of the United States. You're starting to see them move away from and begin to carve their own niche and begin to build relationships with other countries throughout the entire globe, whether it be for commerce or diplomacy. Canada is making moves with Mexico. A bunch of countries are making moves with China. Countries are making moves with Russia. So the rest of the world is moving forward, and they're saying to hell with the United States because we can no longer trust them. Well, the last hombres who are still on this kick, on this ride. I mean, you're starting to see some of even the European countries beginning to peel off because they can't trust what's happening here in this country. It was a slap in the face of European nations when this country decided that they want to, at the manipulation of Israel, partner up and bomb Iran. And they came up with different lies that had been told. And sometimes I think that those who are in this administration don't listen to their own archives or don't have a staff that goes back and combs through some of the words and the statements and the press conferences that they have so that they can understand or prepare themselves for statements that are easily contradictory. Because you listen to some of those ones where they cart out in front of these microphones and they continually contradict themselves, continually misrepresent the facts of everything that's happened and everything that continues to happen. and I'm gonna play some of these videos. Well, actually, I only got 2 videos. But the one thing that's concerning is that you have an administration that is on height heightened alert. What I want to say heightened alert. At where their testosterone, their white psychopathy testosterone is on high. It's escalated to the nth power. You have this um I forget what show he was, but you have the this reality show star Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, behaving and walking around and strutting around, making statements with arrogance of how well, how much power or how much firepower this country has, and they are willing to go out and destroy or demonstrate to any country that wants to challenge them. They're willing to go out and fire their nukes, I mean, not their nukes, fire their bombs and send their drones to any of these nations who do not want to play ball with them, with this country. When this war started to kick off on Saturday, it was things that were leading up that and that had the potential to. I mean, again, it was going to be inevitable because they were sending warships into into that area off the shores of Iran. So it does. So I mean, this has been happening for probably about 2 or 3 weeks. So it was potentially going to happen anyway. But the lies that have been told to manipulate the story to get people all riled up and thinking that, oh yeah, we need to go out and we need to take care of this humanitarian effort, this so-called humanitarian effort that that is becoming a nightmare for the citizens of Iran because the government structure or the evil dictator is murdering its own people. And I've said this before on shows previously that every time that this country wants to invade another country for whatever reason, they always use the line that they're doing it to free the citizens of that country because the evil dictator is abusing its citizens. They did it with Iraq in 2020 in 2004 or 2002. When was that Iraq war? 2002, 2003. When they went in and bombed Iraq, and they had Colin Powell sitting in front of the UN telling this big lie that Saddam Hussein had these weapons of mass destruction, and if we do not go in and take care of that, then they had the potential to threaten the United States with these weapons of mass destruction, where the UEA, which is the organization that goes and does is it the UEA that does the inspections for these countries when sanctions are placed on these countries. Nuclear inspectors. Bear with me for a moment, please. Not the UAE, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Well, so they go in and they do inspections on these nations where there's sanctions placed on them, and they want to make sure that they are not these Middle Eastern. Mostly, it's these Middle Eastern countries, so-called Middle Eastern countries. They want to make sure that nobody's out there in these countries aren't building bombs, building nuclear bombs. And if they do, they go back and they report back, and then of course the other nations that are against these countries building nuclear bombs, they threaten them and with sanctions, and then if they don't comply, then they'll go in and of course they would um, take military action. Well, this is the lie that has been perpetuated on Iran for years now, that they're building nuclear weapons. Well, the reality of that is the truth of that is the fact that no, Iran hasn't been attempting to build any nuclear arms since the deal that was struck with the Obama administration. So that was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. That was the agreement that was put together with the Obama administration. It was established in 2015, and of course, they had Iran had to comply that they weren't attempting to buy or attempting to build nuclear arms or nuclear weapons, and they were complying with that. They had been complying with that since it was signed in 2015. Now, there are factors that go along with that because the JCPOA, of course, was torn up when the muddled-minded sociopath that's in the White House now, in his first term, he tore it up. That's not tough enough. They need to be tough on Iran. They need to be tough. We need to be tough. We need to be tougher. It is so when we're dealing with people who have this idea of them being superior to everyone else on the planet, they feel they can do anything they want. So his rhetoric is, we need to be tougher. Well, there was an agreement that this country has signed, and they were being monitored by the AIEA. And reporting back, the IAEA was reporting back that Iran is complying with the agreement of the JCPOA, that they're not building any nuclear arms. Well, we can't believe that. We can't trust them. Well, your own security agents came back and reported the same information. They sent Tulsi Gabbard into Iran last year, and she comes back and reports back in front of Congress and says, no, Iran is not trying to build. We confirm that they're not trying to build a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, they're not even close to making it possible for them to build a nuclear weapon. So we need to understand that they have been complying. Even after the JCPOA was torn up, they were still complying with that order or with that agreement. And they still continue to comply with that agreement. And they've been attempting to come back to the table to draw something anew. But the current administration has been playing mind games with Iran because Iran understood that, you know, the criticality of them wanting to get back into this agreement, that if this deal could not be struck, that the potential was that they were going to be there was going to be military action taken against them by the United States. Well, the country that's hiding in the weeds behind all of this shit is Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. He's been beating this drum for the last 40 years that Iran has a nuclear weapon. They're going to get a nuclear weapon. They're going to build they're building a nuclear weapon. They're a year away. They're 10 years away. They're 5 years away. Every time that there was a microphone stuck in his face, he was making this reference to the global community that Iran was building this nuclear weapon, and they were close to building this nuclear weapon. Well, he understood that was false. See, there are games that are being played with the minds of the people. And I said last week, when I did my show 2 weeks ago, I made the mention about the miseducation of the Caucasian. And I specifically said the miseducation of the Caucasian because they are the predominant ethnic group here in this country. And if you can continue to miseducate the largest group or the largest ethnic group of your citizens, it's easy for you to be able to pass information to them that's not factual. I mean, Trump himself said that he likes the poorly educated. Well, he's dealing with the poorly educated for sure. He understood that we were never going to support him. We throw away our little 15% of the brothers who voted for him in the last election, 13% prior to that, with 95% of the sisters who have been holding this shit down. 95% or 5% of them voted. 95% said, "The hell with you. I see right through you. I see you. I see you. You can't pull the wool over our eyes. We know who you are." But if you can have a subset of your citizens of your country who are incapable of critical thought, who have a low level of literacy, who are not reading, who are spoon-fed information off of a propaganda media like Fox News or OAN or some of these other these streaming platforms that are out there, where they had continually dial into these platforms, these shows day in and day out. I mean, some of these folk are getting a heavy, undigestible meal from Fox News every day. I mean, they flip the script, they change the narrative, which is really sad because they're supposed to have an unbiased opinion. They're supposed to be journalists, and they're supposed to tell the news each and every day. That's what that's the commitment that they've taken. Some of them, I don't even say some of the ones that are on some of these news medias aren't even journalists, but that's the oath that they took. They are supposed to be unbiased in how they deliver information, the freedom of the press. They're supposed to deliver the information without bias, but that doesn't take place any longer. But you're getting a heavy diet. Those who aren't tuned into, who are incapable of critical thought, are getting a heavy diet and a heavy dose of propagandized information each and every day because they dialed into these platforms. And because they will not take the responsibility for themselves to initiate or engage in critical thought, or even just pick up a damn newspaper. And I'm not talking about the New York Post or some of these other rags that are out there. Hell, even New York Times and the Washington Post is becoming questionable now. Normally, when I go out and I try to find information that I that's telling a different story without a slant or without a bias towards this country, I'll go to news outlets like Al Jazeera, because I know I probably will get some information. I'll probably get some factual information out of Al Jazeera. I would even go to BBC. BBC is pretty good in some of the information some of the news that they tell. But we're dealing with these campaigns that are in this country here, that their sole purpose seems to be to provide news with a slant, to give the impression that they are telling news unbiasedly, but undercover it's all about showing their dedication and their loyalty to this country. You're supposed to be able to just tell the information and let the chips fall where they may. So you're telling this lie that Iran was building nuclear weapons. But you know that the people aren't paying attention, or those who are ingesting this information are paying attention, because in this man's State of the Union address, you had members of his party, the Republican Party, and members of his administration stand up and cheering and clapping when he made the reference that the nuclear facilities in Iran were bombed to obliteration, and they're completely and totally destroyed, and they will never be able to start their nuclear program ever again. So which is it? How can you tell a story 1 week and then a week later you're going into and you bombing Iran because you saying that they were building a nuclear weapon? Well, you need to go back and listen to this a week ago and listen to the message that you delivered during the State of the Union address. Because we're dealing with some heavy white psychopathy right now. They tell a lie in front of your face and expect you to believe it, just so that you can go and bomb some brown people. Then they came up with this idea, well, maybe the idea of us saying that they are building a nuclear weapon, well, maybe that may not fly. So let's say that this is an humanitarian effort. Is that so? So why is it every time you want to invade a country, it's always about a humanitarian effort, when you demonstrated what could rightfully be a humanitarian effort? You cut off the U.S. aid that was helping, that would be able to help those who were struggling throughout the entire globe. That was a humanitarian effort. You gutted that program. So if you're really true about these things, that the action that you're taking against Iran or the so-called dictator is a humanitarian effort because you're trying to free the people of this dictator, why aren't you taking the same action in Sudan? I mean, the war in Sudan, the conflicts in Sudan has been happening for close to a decade now, if not over a decade. That would be a humanitarian effort. So you're telling these lies just so that you can find your way into the graces of the citizens of your country and backing you in going to war in the Middle East or with Iran once again. And I said there's a snake in the grass. Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, who have been trying to get complete hegemony of the Middle East for years. You go back and you look at the relationship between Israel and the United States and Iran, you will know that this has been an ongoing campaign for decades now. You hear the narrative about Hezbollah, and I'm gonna tie this in just 1 second because there's a video I want to play. Because I'm gonna tie in. I'm also want to give you information that confirms and validates that this whole so-called protest that was happening in the streets of Iran was orchestrated by this country, as other things have always been. It was orchestrated by this country, by this government. You hear this story about Hezbollah, about this militant group called Hezbollah, and that they house terrorists and they are a terrorist organization. Da 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 da. When we hear this quite often, whenever there is a global campaign to perpetuate the ideas of all these so-called terrorist groups and terrorist cells, but no one ever stops to think, why are these organizations, why are these terrorist organizations always popping up? And you know, they make these references about it's about these Muslim extremists. Am I saying that Muslim extremists don't exist? No, I'm not saying that. They do. Muslim extremists exist. Jewish extremists exist, and Christian extremists exist. We're living in a nation where there are a bunch of Christian extremists. Don't get it twisted. Just because this country is predominantly Christian, don't ever think that that there aren't Christian extremists that are out there. You got you have a whole administration, and those who are backing this administration can be considered Christian extremists. But why are these extremist groups popping up in the Middle East? Hezbollah was formed in 1982. Why were they formed in 1982? They were actually started as a revolutionary group in 1982, and they were started to as a organization or revolutionary group that was combating the invasion that took place when Israel invaded southern Lebanon. They invaded southern Lebanon and told the lie that they were invading southern Lebanon because they wanted to protect their citizens from hostile involvement and threats that were coming from the so-called Muslim world. But they invaded Lebanon without a cause, without just cause at all. So the revolutionary group or revolutionaries who were so-called Muslim revolutionaries to form the organization Hezbollah to beat back or to be in as a counteraction against the invasion that took place with Israel. So they've been playing these games back and forth in the Middle East for a long time. And if you begin to peel back a lot of the reasons why these things are happening, if you start to peel back and pull the cover off of these conflicts that are taking place, you begin to see that all of this boils down to dollars and cents. Hell, that's why they blew the Palestinian people back to the Stone Age. They wanted beachfront property for the rich. And they see this minerally rich oil reserve that exists that Iran had control over. and they wanted to have the control over it. United States, British, Israel, and they looked at and they used Israel as the United States and Britain used Israel as the watchdogs of the Middle East. Gave them armament, helped to build up their nuclear arsenal, continues to fund them every day. Every day they're sitting there talking about the 51st state. They want these other countries, Canada to be the 51st state, Greenland to be the 51st state. They already have a legitimate 51st state, and it's called Israel because they send more funds to Israel than they send to any other nation in the world. So you were talking about that's the true 51st state right there. But anyway, they were funding Israel to be the watchdogs of the Middle East. And they continually build up their armament because now you see that they have this firepower. They are the superpower in that region. But it's not good enough for them and Bibi Netanyahu. He wants the whole thing. He wants to control the entire region. And he's continually committing genocide, ethnic cleansing against the citizens of Palestine. But Hezbollah was actually created as a counterattack to Lebanon being invaded, or southern Lebanon being invaded by Israel. Go back and do your research. Don't just take stuff at face value. The shit goes deeper than that. The relationship that the United States has had with Iran. If you go back to the early 1970s, 1979. I mean, you are familiar with the Iran hostage situation. I mean, if you're not being taught this, unfortunately, you probably aren't being taught these global events in schools anymore. But you go back and you do the research in 1979. You hear about the Ayatollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. And he again was an evil dictator. And that we need to do away with him. And the people there were radicals, Muslim radicals or Muslim extremists. You know, they continually tell these lies so that people can buy into the idea that the United States is doing some humanitarian efforts in these different countries. But what led up to Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini taking control over Iran in the late 1970s, 1978, 1979, where the hostages that were in the U.S. embassy, when the hostages were taken, where the persons who were in the U.S. embassy were taken hostage. What led up to that? You need to go back a few more decades to understand how this thing transpired. You see, in 1953, Britain again was controlling the resources, the oil resources in Iran. This was the deal that was struck. And I don't want to go back too deep, but Iran Britain took control of Iran and Iran's resources and were controlling that entire region after the Ottoman Empire fell. You go do some research on the Ottoman Empire and find out when that fell. That had begun to fall in World War II, in World War I. And then that leads up to World War II, and you understand the story of World War II, that after World War II ended in 1948, Britain and United States carved out the land that is now known as Israel so that they can house the victims of the Holocaust and they have some place to go. They were giving up, they were making this religious campaign that these the Jewish people needed to return back to their homeland. Mayat Hotep, bro, to you, brother Shago. Thank you again for joining me tonight. So they had to go back to their so-called promised land, which was a story within itself, because the people who were on that land mass were already home. They never left. They were the true Palestinians. So you had the United States and Britain carve out a piece of land so that those who were victims of the Holocaust can go there, and they use this religious propaganda to legitimize this move and saying that they were going back to the promised land. Send me an email and we'll see what's going on, brother, with your notifications. You just make sure that you're checking the clicking the bell. Make sure that you have click the bell so that you will get a notification when I go live. Them going into that area of the land that's was carved out, was being housed by the original Palestinians, the original inhabitants of that land. That was not the first place that they wanted to go. They actually were looking at South Africa. It was out of South Africa. It was out of South Africa or Zimbabwe that they wanted to move the Holocaust victims to Africa. And they're like, no, yeah, no, that ain't going. That definitely is not going to fly. So they took them. They usurped the land or stole the land from the original inhabitants of that region, the Palestinians, and gave it to those who were coming from Eastern Europe and Western Europe into Israel. So now you know why this conflict has been going on for decades now. It has nothing to do with no religious prophecies. You need to stop it. Do some research. Understand that prior to this happening, prior to the Holocaust victims going into the area of Palestine of Palestine today, they were wholly accepted. The Palestinian people accepted them with open arms. And then, you know, as the decades went on, you start to see them become more and more aggressive with them wanting to take more and more land. And now you have these conflicts that have been popping off for decades now. But it started with them, with United States and Britain taking the land from the original inhabitants, the original Palestinians of the land. So getting back involved with Iran. So this is what happened with Iran. In 1953, Iran decided that they wanted to nationalize their oil. United States and Britain had its oil, had control of Iran's oil reserve. So Iran said, no, I want to take just the same thing that Venezuela did with what Hugo Chavez did. He said, I'm going to nationalize my oil, where my oil, the proceeds of the oil will now go back and fund the citizens of my country. Well, they did the same thing with Iran in 1953. 1953, they said, well, I want to now nationalize my oil, which means that takes control of the oil from the hands of Britain and the United States. So they created this campaign, United States created this campaign to overthrow the leader of Iran at that time. The CIA was involved in that. This was in 1953. Let me read this. 1953, U.S. helps orchestrate coup that overthrows Mohammad Mossadegh. So Mohammad Mossadegh was the leader of Iran in 1953. So if you're familiar with this history, you will know that once Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown, that's when they put the Shah of Iran on the throne. Great Britain had control of Iran's oil industry for decades, but in 1953, Iran's elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized the country's oil sector. That move prompted Great Britain to appeal to the U.S. for help, and what results is a CIA-led campaign to topple Mossadegh's government. The coup allows Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, which was the Shah of Iran, he was the last Shah of Iran, to consolidate power around himself. The CIA, long suspected of having a hand in the revolt, officially acknowledged the fact that they had a hand in it in its role in 2013. Mossadegh was imprisoned and later placed under house arrest, where he eventually died. So this leads up to 1979. This is what happened when in 1979, where the Ayatollah Khomeini, Ruhollah Khomeini, and the revolution took place where they threw the Shah of Iran off the throne. The Shah of Iran ends up fleeing to the United States, where he died of cancer. And of course, they took the hostages, 60 hostages, where the United States were trying to find ways to negotiate ways to be able to let these hostages free or let these hostages loose. It goes into a campaign that was a clandestine plan that was orchestrated by the Carter administration, where it fell through in 1979. They were still negotiating for the hostages to be set free, but then you were in the middle of an election. That was the election between Carter and Reagan. In the back door or behind back doors, the Reagan administration or the people who were supporting Reagan were negotiating a deal for the hostages not to be set free until after Reagan's election. If the hostages had been set free in 1980, prior to the election, that would have guaranteed Carter to have a second term. But they negotiated behind back doors that the hostages were not going to be set free. They held the hostages until the inauguration, Reagan's inauguration in 1981. And now Reagan looks like this hero. But the CIA and everyone else manipulated all of this. So this is where Iran begins to become this enemy of the United States, because they wanted to take control of their oil reserves. Now comes Iraq into play. And remember, I'm dealing with white psychopathy. So this is not being manipulated by anybody else other than the United States and Britain, two of the most diabolical countries that ever existed on the face of this planet. They have more blood and more dirt on their hands. The United States and Britain has more dirt on its hands than any other nation in the entire world. Going all the way back to the slave trade. And you think I'm joking about the idea of what white psychopathy is? And I know that I've changed. I hope everyone is doing well, and I do not intend to stay here until 10:30 today or tonight. But just bear with me, because there's a few things I want to pull off real quick, because I want to read this definition again. And thank you all for joining. Again, I love being here. I love being able to teach these lessons. It's a blessing to do this work. Where are we? If you are here for the first time, give me a shout out. Put your name in the chat so that I can give you your propers. Let me see. Okay. So this definition that I created, and I used Baba Nellie Fuller's information from the compensatory code. Can't find that book. Anyway, some of you are familiar with Nellie Fuller's work, this compensatory code. But anyway, white psychopathy is a pathology susceptible to white men. The pathology is defined as a mental illness where some white men believe within the confines of the made-up construct of race that white men are superior to all other people on the planet. Under this pathology, white men believe that they were given all diminutive rights by their God to rule and have control over all other people on the planet through the means of money, economics, politics, education, law, or force, which is military. And this is where we are right now. We're dealing with their belief that they can use their military. They can use their military as might to get people to bend the will of the people and force them to bow down. I was once told that when it gets to the point where you have to continually use force to get your point across, you've lost the people. Now they don't respect you any longer. So now you like a bully. You have to use force to get people to do what you want. And when you do that often enough, when you continually do that, people begin to understand, wait a minute, you aren't the persona that we once respected you to be. You're nothing but a bully. And you're using your military campaigns to force your will on other people or other nations. So we're at the end where you have to continue to go to create these military campaigns to get your point across. Right? So we're at the level of dealing with white psychopathy where they now are using their military, their might, their force to control what it is, or excuse me, not to control, but to validate their superiority over everyone else, because they have this God-given right that they're supposed to control everything. Well, listen quickly to what Mr. P has to say.
Is winning decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. Under the direct command of President Trump, the War Department unleashed this operation early Saturday morning, just 4 days ago, which means we need to remember two things. First, we are only 4 days into this. Metrics are shifting, dust is settling, and more forces are arriving. It's very early. And as President Trump has said, we will take all the time we need to make sure that we succeed. Second, we are only 4 days into this, and the results have been incredible. Historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this, only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries.
And that's some shit. So he's braggadocious about the might and the firepower. And it seems like he's having an orgasm over destruction. Only the United States can do this. This is a campaign that. And there was a few of these press conferences that he had been doing about the precision of this campaign, and they were able to do this, and no other nation has been able to perform this or exercise this. Where's the document that I had out? And that they were so precise, and the precision with their bombs. They blew up a damn school. So you're looking at almost as if these people are this is the second coming of the Keystone Cops running an entire government. And then their mishaps, because they've been having mishaps ever since they were inaugurated back in last January, they continue to cover up the idiocy, the stupid mistakes that they make. And as I said, it seems like they don't have a staff that goes back and listens to the statements that they make, because if they had a decent or competent staff, they would tell them, you can't go back out there and telling people that. That's a lie. I mean, they're going to sniff through that quick, because there's archives out there that says that you said one thing and then 2 or 3 days later you're saying something else. Well, you got a president that lies all the damn time, so he really don't care. Like I said, when he did the State of the Union address, he made this reference about them completely obliterating the nuclear program of Iran, and then a week later he's saying that they need to go back into Iran because they're building nuclear weapons. How in the hell how does it, the math ain't mathing, make that make sense. But because the people who are supporting him have been listening to him lying, regardless of what big lie that he tells tomorrow, they'll still support him because that's their guy, because he's representing what they believe in their mind is the white superiority, as the white psychopathy. So they'll ride and die with him, regardless of whether he starts at World War III and blows up the damn world or not. They'll ride and die with him because he's doing something. He's making himself look like a strong leader. No, he's making himself look like a total buffoon. Then you have the other element part of this party, the religious part. You have the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. You'll remember Mike Huckabee. He was a senator from forget what senator, where it was, Memphis. Arkansas. He was a senator of Arkansas. His daughter was the press secretary in Trump's first administration. Now she's the governor of Arkansas. Could tell a bold-faced lie. I mean, she was standing right in front of your face and just lie. Well, but the secretary, the press secretary that he has now, I mean, they even call her Caroline Levitt, that she tells so many lies in front of the people that is just ridiculous. But anyway, you have this Mike Huckabee, who is this white Christian religious zealot, where he's supporting this campaign with Israel and United States, because he sees this as them ushering into the prophecy of the book of Revelations, the last fight or final fight between good and evil, between the Christians and the Muslims. But there wasn't any Muslims in the damn Bible. There's not a Muslim, the word Muslim, written anywhere in that text. But they use these campaigns, they pimp out religion to get their point, to be able to exercise their extreme beliefs. And I said before about these Christian extremists. He's one of them, along with the other members of his cabinet who were instrumental in putting together the Project 2025. The entire cabinet is filled with Christian extremists. So they have Mike Huckabee goading or in the ear of Trump, along with Netanyahu, who says we need to go into Israel or assist Israel in bombing Iran, because that's going to usher in the prophecy of the Revelations, which will usher in the return of Jesus. I'll let you sit with that for a minute. Because these are the crazy folk that we're dealing with, who have control of the entire governance structure. now you see why I said this is a dangerous game that's being played, because they're willing to blow up the whole goddamn world to make their point. So they got this man saying that, and he's not the only one. There was, as far as I remember, there was a memo, not as far as I remember, but there was a memo that was being circulated in the U.S. Army, where a general was signing on to what's with this war between Israel, United States, and Iran, and he was saying that you have to continue to be behind Donald Trump, because Trump has been placed in the leadership by God, and God is going to usher in, Trump is going to usher in the liberation of the Christians, and is going to also usher in the second coming of Christ, something like that. I mean, this is not verbatim. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but if you go and you do a Google search, you'll see that there was a general, and this is a person that's in the military, supposed to have some sense of common sense. We know common sense ain't common any goddamn more, but they're in the military with these ideologies. And I said, this is why this shit is dangerous, because we're at the beck and call of someone who has the control of the military and someone who has control of the entire governance structure with the nuclear codes, who can order a nuclear strike at his whim. Probably why he's sitting there tweeting or whatever he's doing on a toilet at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I said that there had to been a campaign to get the people involved and get their backing. Of this war with Iraq, and it is a war. Don't be mistaken. It is definitely a war. Yeah, there's a vaccine. I can tell you what the vaccine is, brother, but I don't want them to strike my show. But there's definitely a vaccine. This is Scott Bessett. One second. I thank you all again for being a part of this, for hanging here with me. And I'll be finished here in just 1, 2, probably about another 15 minutes. I should be finished. So the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. Remember, I told you that the United States, they continue to have these campaigns where they're manipulating the people, they're manipulating the minds of the people, and they manipulate these coups to be able to take control of these different countries, or take control of their resource, or take control of their commerce. Quick point: if you go back and do research again, United States hands are so damn bloody. We used it. Japan was the enemy in World War II. Everyone thought it was a mystery of why Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Little small Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. And as they say, they awakened the sleeping giant, but it's like a flea attacking a damn elephant. Why would a flea attack an elephant? Was the flea crazy? Or did the elephant do something to the flea that caused that flea to attack that elephant? what caused Japan to bomb Pearl Harbor was that United States was squeezing Japan's economics. They were crushing economic yen, trying to destroy it. Japan had no choice but to fight back and do something. But the only recourse was for them to show some sense of pushback was to bomb Pearl Harbor. And of course, that got the United States into World War II. Do your research. That's all you have to do is do your research. So we're fast forwarding to today. You think that the reason why those people, why the Iranian citizens were in the streets for protesting for all those many weeks, and they call it to be saying it's a humanitarian crisis. Well, that it was, and they were saying that the women and the children, or primarily the women, they were being abused, but they weren't. The women in Saudi Arabia were being far more abused than what they are in Iran. But they weren't bombing Saudi Arabia or Turkey. There's a humanitarian crisis in Turkey and Saudi Arabia. The women in Turkey and in Saudi Arabia are being abused far more than what they are being abused in Iran. Is that are they doing humanitarian efforts there? What's this thing about? Listen to what Scott Bessent had to say. Remember what I said about Japan.
Be doing as we see us place pressure on the Ayatollah, who is no friend of the United States of America, and as we see what he is doing to the citizens of his own country and the streets, what more can we be doing to make sure that we are placing the pressure that we need to on the greatest state sponsor of terrorism, and that is the Ayatollah and Iran?
Well, what we can do at Treasury, and what we have done is created a dollar shortage in the country. At a speech at the Economic Club of New York in March, I outlined the strategy. It came to a swift and I would say grand culmination in December, when one of the largest banks in Iran went under. There was a run on the bank. The central bank had to print money. The Iranian currency went into free fall. Inflation exploded, and hence we have seen the Iranian people out on the street. We will continue monitoring all the partners, all the Iranian partners. The good news, Senator, is that we have seen, and we can see it with our FinCEN, we have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
Remember what I said about Japan? Y'all think that the people were in the streets protesting for whatever reason because they were tired of living underneath of a tyrant dictator, where he's been in rulership oh goodness. How long was he in rulership? Ali Khamenei was, come on now, don't do this. $1989. So he had a 36-year rulership. So now all of a sudden, after 3 decades, all of a sudden, the people or the citizens of Iran has become fed up with his rulership, so they had to go out into the streets and protest. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. He just told you why they were in the streets protesting. The United States, U.S. Treasury exercised this campaign and where they were weakening the Iranian dollar, and the people were becoming unrest because they were beginning to see their finances shrink. They were beginning to see their economic shrink. So they went into the streets and they began to protest. But what manipulated that situation was this country here. I told you this country has had blood on its hands since the beginning since its inception. And they've been manipulating shit from the beginning. This is what you call white psychopathy, where they can feel that they can do whatever they want to with anybody else they feel is necessary, just so they can exercise rulership over them. So if you say that I do not want to play ball with you anymore, I want to take my ball and I want to go home. I don't want to sell you oil anymore. I want to take control of my oil reserves. I want to exercise hegemony over my own people. I want you to get your military bases off of my land. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I don't want to deal with you anymore. The United States is like, okay, what can we manipulate to make you bow down to us? What can we do to make you bow down to us? Can we turn your people against you? Can we create so much hell that you will get into your fire, into your jets, into your planes at that time, World War II, into your planes in the 1940s and fly across waters and bomb a city in one of your states? Can we do enough manipulation where we can force your people out into the streets and create what is a so-called revolution? Y'all know are you familiar with the Iran war? Where the United States was funding Iraq to go to war with Iran. And that war lasted for a decade or two. But the United States was funding Iraq to go to war with Iran. This was after 1980, after the hostages were set free and Reagan, of course, took office. The Iran-Contras, and I'm not going to go into that tonight. I'll say that for a different day, a different time, but do your research on the Iran-Contra. They were selling arms. They were selling arms to Iraq, and they were selling arms to Iran at the same time. The money, the proceeds that they were getting from Iran, from selling the arms to Iran, went into to fund the campaign that was taking place down in Central America. To tie into that, within our community, they used the sale of the arms, and they also were able to put the distribution of crack cocaine into the Black communities, which began to destroy our communities. That came from the Iran-Contras. From them selling arms to Iran with the help for them to continue to fight, for Iraq and Iran to continue to fight each other, because they wanted to maintain control of that region and the resources, the oil resources that were there. Do your research. This ain't no joke. And then you have a madman sitting in the Oval Office who is the epitome of white psychopathy, who believes that he can do every damn thing he wants. And he's exercising the power that was given to him, that was bequeathed to him by the Supreme Court, where they made a decision, a 6-3 decision, that says that as long as he was acting on the behalf of the president of the office of the presidency, he can do whatever he wanted. He can put soldiers into the streets of American citizens and turn his soldiers against American citizens. And he can't be prosecuted for that because he's acting on the behalf of the office of the presidency. Going back into Michael Bradley's book, The Iceman's Inheritance. Read this and then I'm out. If you're here for the first time, again, give me a shout out. Let me know that you are here for the first time. If you've been here and part of this experience, I again am blessed that you're here and supporting Moments with Malik. And don't forget to thumbs up this video, like, share, and thumbs up, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We're still building our numbers in YouTube. This gets the algorithms gone, and this continues to build the show. This continues to build the Health Walk, and it continues to build Moments with Malik. The Iceman's Inheritance. Cloud of Fire and Ice. And this is the middle of the chapter. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm out the door. But before I leave, I make a quick announcement. So these special adaptions had incidental side effects. I'm not going to read that. Read this. Not intelligence, nor morality, nor spirit, but aggression. He's talking about the aggressive nature of the Caucasian. Not intelligence, not morality, not spirit, but aggression is responsible for the white man's superiority. Aggression is responsible for the expansion of Caucasoids, both geographically and culturally, at the expense of other races. We witnessed the final act of this expansion in our own time. It began when the glaciers retreated, when MwM released the white race from its tutelage under fire and ice, when pathological temporal aggression was unleashed upon the world. This higher level of aggression, which is merely an incidental result of glacial evolution, has fueled extreme manifestations of temporal assertion and defense among Caucasoids. Rampant technology, environmental pollution, resource rapine, raping resources, I'll put it that way, and the threat of nuclear war are the results. I will also try to show that the white race's apparent inability to cope well with intellectual conflict to cope non-violently with paradox stems from psychosexual frustrations. We have a few lower frustration tolerance because glacial adaptation robbed us of sufficiently effectiveness sexual displacement activities. Our philosophical and religious conflicts are the result of a glacial distortion of primate behavior patterns. All the primates are a monstrous vanity. What about our superiority? Did our glacial evolution unique among men and our responsive adaptation serve to make us superior? However, accidentally? Yes and no. There is nothing innate or internal about superiority and inferiority. Both are dictated by external conditions. External conditions can change. Superiority and inferiority can trade places in an instant. It has happened before, it's happening now. During the Miocene, the Earth was largely covered, and we're dealing with going back into the evolution of time. So during the Miocene, the Earth was largely covered with luxurious forests. Two major lines of advanced primates coexisted. Obtending, I'm gonna see, I'm gonna skip over this because I don't want to deal with that part. I'm gonna skip over that. My apologies. So I'm gonna step down into where it says the earth entered a drought millions of years ago. Forests and forests dwindled, and the Pangaeas dwindled with them. By the sheerest and accident, hominid liabilities in the Miocene became assets during the Pliocene or to the Pliocene. It is often said that our failure to adapt to the forest left our adaptational options open for the new environmental conditions of the Pliocene. It is truer to say that the conditions of the Pliocene happened to favor our primitive characteristics. Man is a primitive and unspecialized primate. It is natural to assume unconsciously that the hominids possess some sort of innate superiority which made man's present preeminence inevitable. Preeminence inevitable. Nonsense. The hominids merely possessed characteristics which were manifestly inferior during the Miocene era, and which suddenly became superior in the Pliocene. So it is with superiority and inferiority of racial characteristics. Superior for what? Superior when? I will propose in this essay that the white race possesses an atypical level of aggression. Whether this characteristic is a superiority or an inferiority depends solely upon environmental conditions. I suppose that from 30,000 BP, which means before present, until now, abnormal Caucasian aggression must be judged to have been a superiority. The Caucasoid manifestly expanded culturally and geographically, often at the expense of other races of men. This is the objective biological criterion of evolutionary success. Under the environmental conditions of a relatively empty and resource-rich world, Caucasoid aggression proved supportable, viable, and successful. But environmental conditions have changed. The earth is scarred by 30,000 years of Caucasoid aggression. It is no longer empty. It is too full. It is no longer resource-rich. It is impoverished. Caucasoid aggression has developed weapons capable of destroying it. It seems obvious that Caucasoid characteristics are no longer supportable, no longer viable. Our proclivities can no longer be judged superior. On the contrary, we seem to be rapidly becoming inferior compared to other races of men. Caucasoid predispositions are too expensive, biologically, in a resource-raped world. Unless Caucasoids manage to destroy the world with weapons created because of their temporal aggression, the future would seem to belong to the less aggressive, less identity, greed kinds of men. In short, it is my judgment and the position of this book that since the end of World War II, Caucasoids have become biologically inferior to other kinds of men, given our present environment. One way or another, the tale of the Iceman and his heirs seems to be on its last telling. The history of this future will be told by men with less conflicting elements in their composition. And I said before that sometimes when I read over these words, because the print is so small, and I really should stop being vain and start putting my reading glasses on, to be honest with you. But anyway, to sum up what he was saying, he's given the telltale and the behavior of what has happened to are part of this race family who have become aggressive because they lived underneath of ice for so many years, so many centuries, so many decades, so many centuries for millennia, 30,000 years. And because they continue to carry that aggression, that aggressive gene with them, they are wreaking havoc on other people across the globe because they believe in their ideologies and their psyche that they're more superior than everyone else. And they will do whatever is necessary for them or to them to prove their so-called superiority. So they will go to war and they will destroy another nation because that nation has the resources that this country wants or that the U.S. psychopathic white man wants. They will tell a story about the book of Revelations and lie about we need to exercise this war as supposedly being the war that ends all wars, the last war between good and evil before our God sends our Savior, the Savior of their religion, not the true history of the revolutionary who went by the name of Yusuf Ben Jochanan. Is it Jochanan? I'm sorry, not Jochanan. Yusuf ben Jacob, I'm sorry. Jesus ben Jacob, or Jesus son of Jacob, who was historically supposed to have been a revolutionary, fighting the tyranny of the Roman Empire. But they created this story that was built on what would have been a historical narrative and made this person their savior and said that he's going to be coming back. And in order for them to usher in the prophecy of the book of Revelations, I'm going to say Revolution, the book of Revelations, they need to orchestrate this war between the Christians and the Muslims. We have to understand what times we're in and how dangerous shit can become. This is not going to be an easy time for us. And this is the reason why we are on these airways giving information that will assist us in keeping our spirit whole, keeping our mind healthy, keeping our bodies healthy, because we don't know what could pop off in the next few months. So remember about you doing your meditation, doing your prayers, eating right, getting your exercises, and saving your money, trying to find ways to be able to build relationships with people who you trust. This is all about maintaining and sustaining your health. Because the shit that's happening and the potential of shit that could happen, we could be in some difficult times in the next few months to maybe the next couple years. It depends on what happens with this conflict, because this thing could really jump into a global war. And Iran is not playing. If you listen to the real news, they'll tell you that Iran is not backing down. There's 90 million people, almost 100 million people in Iran. and the terrain where Iran sits, it's difficult for their drones to do anything of any significant damage unless there's areas that are exposed. So that means that in order for them, if they really want to do what's necessary to further their white psychopathic campaigns, they got to put boots on the ground. And that's when it's really going to get ugly. So stay prayed up, and stay in tune with what's happening, because this is definitely not a joke. Tomorrow, my scheduled guest had to reschedule for next Thursday, so she will not be here tomorrow. March 5th, she will be back. She will be here or agreed to do the show on the 12th of March. But I will be here tomorrow. This being Women's Month, and shout out to women and the contributions that they have made to the world. There was and I'll read it tomorrow, but there was those who are part of our traditional African spiritual systems, about the Odu Ifa. And there was a Odu Ifa, an Odu in the book of Odu Ifa that talks about the significance of women. I'll read that tomorrow, but I will be back tomorrow at 7:30. I have 3 shows that I'm going to clip, and I'm going to highlight those 3 shows just to kind of give reverence to the women who have been on my show, who have been on a health walk. One is going to be, I'm going to clip a portion of Dr. Sunyata Amin's show that she did. She actually did that show 2 years ago in March, where she was one of my first guests. Last year I did a combined show with Mama Oriomi, Partner in Power, and our Nana Kosawa. We were talking and having a discussion about women's health as well. There's another show, or maybe 2 other shows I want to clip. There's a Dea Lot was talking. She was having a discussion about yoga. I might clip that. And the show that I did with New Love, Nubian Love. She did. I did a show with her about the health of crystal. She's a crystallologist. Another one of my first guests that came onto the show. So I'm gonna clip all that because I want to give some. I want to give some pub to the women, because this is Women's Month, and much deserving. I want to honor them in the work that they do in the community. So join me tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern time. I hope you come back and still be a part of this experience. But as you leave here tonight, I hope my show, I hope what I put together tonight was something that that we can cleave to, that will assist us and give us a little more understanding of how these things are, what's happening in the world, and how things are being manipulated behind the door with this government and the governance structure, and how they continue to use their psychopathic behaviors to disrupt the lives of other people on the planet. And I will continue to do subjects like this as I go forward with Moments with Malik. But there are some other things that I'm going to progress or step into as well. But I hope just what I did tonight serves a purpose to you, and that you will continue to support me and continue to come back and be a part of these conversations that I have on Wednesdays. So as you leave here, know that you leave in peace. Know that you leave with love in your heart. continue to pray, continue to be grounded, continue to be rooted, continue to keep yourself aligned with the things that are happening. And you can also be as influential as others to make changes in their life. You can spark the revolution. You can be an integral part of that. But it first starts with you. You be the change that you want to see in the world. And until we meet again tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern Time, on the Health Walk, live on YouTube and Facebook. Until we meet again. Until you come back and hang out with your brother tomorrow. Peace and love all the